Welcome to RevHC's series, Under the Codes, which is candid conversations with some of the best thought minds in healthcare. Today, we're lucky enough to have Cary McNamara, president of HealthTrack's RX, the largest private lab in the entire country. Thank you for being here, Cary.
Appreciate it, Wes.
So, Cary, just as a background and a level set, you were a banker, private equity side, been CFO of 7 healthcare companies, tech, services, now president of one that jumped over into the life sciences lab sector. So help me understand that. That's a pretty significant transition, and what brought you to the lab world and why?
So what interested me about HealthTrack was less that it's diagnostics and more what it's doing in diagnostics. And so the real value prop for us is we provide results to patients and providers overnight via a very substantial relationship and logistics apparatus with UPS. And so the way it was pitched to me was we can take all this infrastructure and really impact American healthcare by delivering what I think of as the Amazon effect of speed to your service or speed to your product. What the business has done is taken infectious disease testing for principally urgent care and pediatrics, and we now provide overnight results to any provider in the continental United States. And so that's what was really interesting to me, is to say, how can we make healthcare faster? Because speed is value, speed is quicker access to care, quicker time to health or back to quality health. And that's what got me excited about coming in the diagnostic space.
That's awesome. One thing that really surprised me about what you just said that just came to mind is those are all, that speed not only is a better path to care, but really customer service, which is something that is often overlooked. We call them patients instead of customers, but there's a huge aspect in that speed having such an impact. Mm-hmm. How is the lab space? What challenges were you surprised by when you came into the lab sector versus services or tech, and how did it differ as a business?
It's a great question. You know, within healthcare, we have a propensity, like you have articulated, to not necessarily think through the lens of consumerism. And one of the very quick learnings that I have had in the life sciences space is you actually are probably more customer centric in the traditional sense of customer being kind of more retail, where you got to think about your ordering physician's experience, because we have no contracts. And so any physician, any ordering partner can tomorrow go order from another lab. And so you've got to be thinking with that kind of customer first mentality. And so our largest operating metric or KPI that we look at every morning is actually called our customer experience metric. And for us, it is a calculus that says, out of all of the 10,000 orders that we're going to receive every night, how many are resulted back to the patient and provider by noon the next day? And so if you start to unpack that, it truly is a ballet of logistics, where you've got to have the sample collected and packaged correctly at the point of care. UPS has to pick this up. UPS has to get this on one of their aircraft. That aircraft has to get to Louisville. It's got to get from Louisville to the lab, which is also on the UPS campus. And all of that's got to happen almost with manufacturing-like precision, where you are beginning the accessioning at 1 a.m. and you're starting to put samples on instrumentation by 4 or 5 a.m. and reports are going out by as early as 9 a.m. so that you hit that customer experience network KPI. Because for us, our brand and our brand promise to our partners and our customers is noon the next day. So that idea of speed, I call it the Amazon effect of healthcare, but we're going to all start to expect our healthcare faster, which is a great thing.
Which seems like wouldn't be possible without a corporate partnership outside of healthcare through UPS. Can you speak a little bit about how you approach that, how you built that, the impact it makes, the economic decisions you make?
Yeah, I would say UPS is at kind of the forefront of healthcare logistics. And when you think about healthcare logistics, it's so much more complicated than the Amazon box that arrives on our front porches every other day. because you've got samples or tissue that has a certain shelf life, right? You can only, if a sample's collected, in some cases it's got to be resulted within 48 hours. In some cases it's got to be resulted within a week. In some cases it can be shipped at room temperature. In other cases it's got to be shipped on cold pack, and in certain instances it's got to be frozen. And so you've got to have a partner that has, ideally, all of those different configurations of logistics delivery, because what you don't want to do is have to manage a whole smorgasbord of vendors. And so what's great with UPS, and the reason we've kind of created the substantial partnership we have with them, is we use them for kind of brown box pickups. We use them for courier pickups. We're totally wrapped around a technology interface with them. We do certain cold chain shipping, frozen shipping, room temperature shipping, and their ability to do all of that overnight is the secret sauce for what makes HealthTrack unique, and has allowed us to become kind of the foremost molecular lab in the US.
It's impressive. Compared to services or tech, how do the relationships in life sciences or labs specifically differ with the payer relationships? We spoke about the provider, we spoke about the inpatient user. Like, what headwinds were you surprised by in this sector?
So it's a good question, and it's a bit of a canned response. So in healthcare, it's one of the few places that you actually have three critical stakeholders, right? In patient, provider, and payer, right? Our three Ps. And what you see most healthcare growth assets do is they orient to the first two, or maybe even one of the first two in the early sledding. And they get kind of behind the eight ball, and when they reach scale, they've got to get back in front of that eight ball as it relates to a payer relationship, because a payer is just as much a customer in healthcare, and the payer's members are just as much of a customer in healthcare as the provider or the patient. And so one of the things that we have done over the last 2 years is invest tremendous time, energy, effort, and resources to bring the payers to the table with us to say, this is what we're doing. This is how we're thinking about coding. This is how we're thinking about diagnostic solution design. This is how we're thinking about panel design. Every 6 months, we host a very substantial payer advisory board that is filled with CMOs, directors, researchers from our payer partners, and we spend a day talking about this stuff. And they kind of inform where we're going to ensure that it aligns with what they value. And so, kind of putting a bow on this, the payer is not an adversary in healthcare, which so many providers look at them as the natural adversary. The quicker that you can get up the maturation curve as a growth asset and say, I need to look at all three stakeholders as equals and provide great care to a patient, great diagnostic answers and intelligence to a provider, and then make sure that I'm doing this aligned to what the payer values. And so obviously that's going to be cost. How is it going to be? It's going to be differentiation. So in our case, that's speed to diagnostics, and the payer gets the value, right? So in a lot of cases, one of our great value props to a payer is by getting faster answers, the provider will prescribe less. So the vast majority of prescriptions today and ordering is done on an empiric basis, meaning I walk into the urgent care, I got a cough, and the doc goes, been doing this for 20 years. This one kind of feels like a viral. This one feels like a bacterial. They're going to tell me to go sleep it off on a viral. They're going to tell me to go pick up my prescription for the bacterial. But if you can provide data and intelligence to make an absolute prescription, either for or against, then you don't have adverse prescribing, which benefits both patient and payer. And so that's how I constantly harp to my team that our market access function is so critical, because you've got to be a partner to the payers.
Have them change the perspective, see you as a cost-saving tool.
As a partner.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you incur costs, but you're providing better care to members, faster answers for members. They're in the commercial, they are themselves commercial enterprises as well. They've got to win members, and anything they can do to differentiate and provide something unique in the marketplace, accrues to their benefit. So that's where I think a lot of guys in healthcare get it wrong. They're not just there to cut costs. They too are commercial beasts. You just got to understand how they think.
That's well said. I think we often forget how competitive the vying for these lives, especially commercial lives and MA lives, is by these payers against one another. Your past two businesses were both in the staffing side, onshore, offshore, et cetera. There's a lot of, especially by new adopters of offshore experiences, a lot of gaps in understanding. What are your thoughts on the offshore piece? Where can the best value be derived from those partnerships and those platforms?
It's a great question. The healthcare in America is now so dependent on offshoring vendors and offshoring partners. And that is nowhere kind of more visible in the complexities of revenue cycle. We have an extremely complicated reimbursement environment in healthcare, and it's not going anywhere. And so the challenge we have would be collecting all of our dollars for scaled providers using just onshore resources would be incredibly cost prohibitive. And so to run a scaled collections function, you've got to look overseas. And what's beautiful is our overseas partners now know more about coding and billing and collecting and working with payers than many onshore resources do. And so we've ran operations in India, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Africa, and I continue to get so energized and encouraged with the teams that we see built over there. And so for me, what's most important is you have to accept you're going to continually build this critical function of our organization offshore. It then becomes, who do you pick for a partner? Because there's so many offshore solution providers. For me, it comes down to really a couple of critical things. You've got to look at the offshore resources and the FTEs, not as vendor W-2s, but as W-2s of yours, just badged differently. You've got to have the ability to reach out to the managers, even though they work for a different company. You got to have a relationship. You got to go to dinner. You got to get to know them. And so, we currently work with 3 offshore parties. I ran an offshore company before this, and where you see it succeed most are those resources aligned to your internal operations? And do you think of them as an extension of your own labor force? And if you do that, you're going to have a very successful outcome in the partnership. And so when you say, how do I assess? I am looking for people and partners that are not saying, you give us this, we know best, and we'll go do it. It's, I will figure out how to recruit, retain, incent, and provide you with labor resources. And then we're going to engage and kind of sit shoulder to shoulder with these folks in the Philippines, India, Sri Lanka, wherever the case may be overseas, and we're going to work alongside with them. And that's the critical factor around how we decide who we're going to work with overseas and where we're going to work with folks overseas.
Well said. The all in the boat together. You touched on two sides of one coin that kind of surprised me. It's not uncommon to think about an us and them. We're the here team, we're their team. You spoke about it from the vendor thinking an us versus them, where we don't want to be that close to you. We just want to handle the work and get out of the way. That is a very unique perspective. I would say most people then when they think about this service or utilizing it, immediately gravitate towards the cost arbitrage. There's obviously a lot of layers beyond that, whether it's staffing concerns or quality or whatever. And you highlighted the efficacy of these businesses has significantly increased in past years. Can you speak to, other than the cost arbitrage, some of the other things that you underwrite in your mind when you think about these partnerships?
Yeah, I think the idea of cost arbitrage or labor arbitrage in kind of picking an outsourcing partner is a little bit of an arcane approach. These are now extremely developed markets where kind of the resources rates are pretty well established, arguably commoditized. So it's not really a price shopping calculus so much as it once was, whereas it's predictability and engagement. And so by that I mean, kind of as a CFO, putting on my CFO hat, I need a partner that is going to collect the dollars I expect them to collect, to do so in at the periodicity or within the time frames that I am forecasting and assuming to kind of continue running my business. Because if the partner kind of misfires on one of those two, they either collect less or they do not collect at the speed I expect them to collect, it doesn't matter if I've got the most labor arbitrage on the planet, I'm going to have serious working capital repercussions. And so for me, it's if I've got to pay a premium to get predictability, to hit the numbers we expect to hit, that's worth it. That's really, anytime people are like, hey, here's how we're looking at this, I strongly encourage them to say, if you pay a 10% premium to get that predictability, visibility, and partnership, worth every nickel.
I think it feels like a good increasing conversation to speak towards cost versus price. What is your all-in cost based on performance, not just the price you set coming out of the gate, which feels where you're talking about, I'll pay 10% more for 20% better outcomes.
Exactly. Or just alignment. I've had partners where you've got some of that us versus them, and you go, hey, how many people are staffed on the account? You don't need to know that. I'm here to staff. You're here to just take the dollars I send you. Can I get reporting on how we're working denials, appeals, kind of how many claims are being submitted and at what intervals? You don't need to know any of that. And you go, this isn't going to work. And so you start to look for other partners, because it's transparency at the end of the day. It's transparency, and you doing what you say you're going to do in the relationship. We're going to do what we say we're going to do in the relationship. And we're going to work together. So it's all kind of, like you said, two sides of the same coin.
How do you look for your partners to measure their own people? Do you weigh in on that? Do you have thoughts on it? Does it help you with client or partner selectivity or non-negotiables?
Yeah, no, I think the most for offshoring, particularly as a consumer of offshore services, I think the most important metric for me is attrition. We all know there is high turnover in offshore call centers and delivery centers. When we go to assess partners, one of the first things I'll ask them is, what's the average tenure of your resource? Because much like when we hire and recruit in the US, I don't want a team that's constantly having to be repopulated. And so likewise, when we go overseas, I want to know that we're going to cobble together a junior team, middle management team, and a senior team that is going to be together for quarters and years. And that inevitably is going to create a sense of institutional knowledge and value that will accrue to the benefit of all of us, and certainly, our operations. So I think that's the critical KPI by which I would assess most offshore vendors. There's a lot of speculation on, well, how much premium do you put on their technology offering, on their geographic locale? And to be honest, not a lot. I think the technology solution set has gotten very commoditized. I think everybody's got something there. The internet in Sri Lanka is no different than the internet in China, is no different than the internet in South Africa. So the geographic differentiation is less than it once was. I think everybody's coming to the fore and to the table with pretty good technology. So what's great is it gets back to a place of people, integrity, communication, trust. And when you've got an industry that is matured to where those are the decision points, then you're in a very good place. And that's where I think offshoring's gotten, both as a vendor as well as from a consumer's perspective.
That's wonderful. When you think about all the services that are potentially offshoreable now, and you're looking through your scope, are there portions you think are better keeping onshore that you want to control in a different way? And if somebody might be considering making this move, what works best there? What works best here? We talked about RCM, but RCM is made up of a lot.
It is. So
maybe geography is different. Maybe the Philippines are better at one communication versus
That's
India.
Exactly right. There's some preconceived notions of what you should offshore and what you shouldn't. I don't really subscribe to any of those. I think you can do voice offshore, you can do claim submission offshore, you can do denials and appeals offshore if you find the right partner. What I challenge kind of my partner or my team to look at is if we can get all the revenue cycle offshore, great, and we have. So we've got over 400 resources offshore against 15 onshore. And I don't know that could even move in a more favorable direction. But now what you do is you come back into the operations and you go, where else can we go offshore? And sure, outside of revenue cycle, there probably is some labor arbitrage, but you also benefit from what I call the 24-hour work cycle. So if I can get the right offshore partner on the other side of the globe, then I got 12 hours onshore, 12 hours offshore, and I'm constantly cycling. One of the things we've looked for partners in the diagnostic space is where can we look at either reviews or data partners in China, India, elsewhere, to complement some of our actual operational solutions. And this isn't anything new. You've got radiologists who've been doing this for the last 25 years, where you've got reads being done by rads in India overnight. And so now you're looking at it saying, okay, it's proven in that little subsector of healthcare, where within our business can we do it? And that's where I think as a good operator, you're constantly looking to say, how can I extend from an 8 or 12 hour cycle to a 18 or 24 hour cycle? How can I get more throughput on both machines, but also on resources by chasing the clock? And so in terms of what more can be done, we can do a lot more working with the right overseas partners than just revenue cycle.
Mm. And for anyone listening that is looking for a concrete example, I would offer coding. Coding can be done at night in the United States.
Yeah.
Whereas there's very little communication on the front end with payers or providers. Mm-hmm. Why not have your team work for you while you're sleeping?
Exactly.
Business making money for you. Can you think of, as you look through your experience, a failure in this process and a large success, and how you could have mitigated it differently, or just the return that came out of that? Just an example on both sides, so to speak, of to stand out and say, this is why you do it and this is what you watch out for.
The both failures and successes, and I've kind of got one in each camp that is my poster child here. The failure happened for the exact same reason that the success happened, and that is what I will call extreme maniacal alignment. If you go to work without offshore partners and you're not extremely aligned to the point where you're doing morning huddles and evening huddles, and you're learning how they think, and they're learning how you think, and they're learning your language, you're learning their language in terms of the business's nomenclature, you're going to fail. Inversely, if you've got all that right 30 days before the gun goes off and you guys start racing, then you're going to have extreme success. The only time I see these things fail is where largely the principal, the we as the operator, are not engaged with and managing our offshore partner to the same extent. And when I see these things succeed in flying colors, there is a singular owner in the part of the business that cares about those offshore resources to the same extent that they do their colleagues working out of the same office. And when that's there, these things succeed or they fail.
That's what it's surprising to think of such a qualitative, human, personal approach as being the most impactful thing, when we especially always want to gravitate towards a quantification. I mean, you have a CFO here, or past CFO, using a qualitative, emotional aspect as the measurement variable against the quantitative. That alone is a unique circumstance. We mentioned technology. I want to speak a little bit about technology now, future. Impossible to do anything in healthcare without everyone just wanting to speak endlessly about AI and that directionality. As a finance-grounded person, as an operator with your background across multiple sectors, where do you see this going? Who do you think the biggest winners are? Who do you think the biggest losers are? What is the efficacy of this? Just a macro perspective.
Yeah, there is unequivocally an enormous amount of value that is going to accrue to the benefit of the entire healthcare continuum over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years from AI. And, it's now so hot and so much of a buzz, but it's not necessarily new. You go back 10 years and you got IBM's Watson as kind of leading this idea of just how much can we do with large language models and computers. And now we're just seeing the adoption cycle pick up pace a little bit. So I think where you're going to see the most benefit from AI, and I'm going to think about this through each of those 3 critical stakeholders that I mentioned earlier. Let's start with the provider. You're going to have easy, real-time, informed prescribing decisions, AI-informed radiology reads. You're going to be able to take huge amounts of data from a patient and boil it into, here's the right chemotherapy treatment plan, or here's the right care regimen based on more data than we could ever consume in a lifetime. So that's great for a provider. Obviously, then the benefit to the patient is I'm definitely getting more personalized medicine, which inevitably will benefit me. But so too, I'm going to now get more timely information through my care practice. Going to the last, I've got the payers. For the payers, and then for us on kind of the business side of the providers, we're going to be able to work together so much faster, whether it's claim submissions, remittance against claims, denials and appeal cycles, coding. All of that's going to benefit from AI. But as I always tell my team, at the end of the day, you've got to have a strategy and a decision point, and someone's got to sit down and say, this is what we're going to do. AI is not going to give you that. It may inform it. And so there's always going to be a seat at the table for the strategy, the planning, the auditing of what's coming out of AI. I don't think AI is going to be this end-all, be-all solution that some folks think it is. I think it unequivocally will be beneficial, but it's going to be incrementally contributive, not holistically. It's kind of like if you've been in around healthcare long enough, it's VBC. Everybody talks about value-based care 30 years ago. Oh, it's going to change healthcare. Now here we sit, VBC means nothing. No, you ask 5 different people, it means 5 different things. And I think AI's got a little bit of that right now, where you're going, hey, yeah, there is this notion of value-based care. Hey, there is this notion of artificial intelligence. But
don't forget blockchain.
Yeah,
we had to go through the blockchain.
Don't forget our blockchain
evolution.
So some of that is you've got these maturation cycles that have to work through, and that's my soapbox.
When you look at that and how it's coming up, as you said, incrementally, not holistically, where do you think the directionality is going back to that offshore tool? How much of that can then be the second stage of the automation through these tools? Mm-hmm. Versus will continue just as US won't be replaced with it, that offshore won't be completely replaced.
No.
Where do you see the directionality going as a percent of that workload?
So if the question is, will AI disintermediate stateside resources or offshore resources?
Let me think. If you've moved 100% of your RCM offshore, what percent of that can be sub-automated versus still needing those in-person resources?
Got it. So as I think about where I would plug it in, I would still leave it offshore. The AI solution would be something that I want my offshore partner to bring to me. So I'm not going to go out and source the right AI solution to disintermediate my partner and say, oh, I can run all this on big computers overnight and I don't need offshore. Where I think it's going to go is the great offshore operators, of which there are many, you guys, Synergen, WNS, Shearwater, Genpact. There's great offshore folks that have incredible technological experience. And I think they're going to bring the right complementary AI toolkits to guys like me and say, hey, I've got 500 resources working in Bangalore. I'm going to go down to 350 resources and I'm going to bring this AI solution and plug it in to our revenue cycle offering. So that's where I think, in terms of thinking through my lens, that's where I see AI kind of injecting itself in my business.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure from your position, you're looking for risk mitigation as that comes online.
100%.
Are you also looking for cost arbitrage as they recognize it if this is a real partnership?
I think there's a couple of places. It's risk mitigation, so removing the human error. It's the speed and the predictability element that's going to come from software versus human. And then the third, as you said, there probably certainly is some cost opportunities there. But I think you're measuring that in tens of basis points, not hundreds of basis points. And so, sure, you're going to get rid of 100 people. That's going to reduce tons of overhead and tons of headache. So, there's going to be some share there. I'm not necessarily, as a consumer of offshoring solutions, expecting to take 100 cents of the savings. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if I would be expecting to take 50-50. I understand you're going to benefit from that. You found the right solution. I'm going to get the value of less human error and greater speed. Give me some of the savings, but I understand you've got to operate your solution set, which includes human capital as well as software or AI capital, and I leave that to you.
I think since we've been speaking, as hot as RCM sector is right now in the private equity market, there's probably been 3 companies created backed by VCs in just this time. How do you look at unique, well-marketed solutions that are new to market from your position, from your president position, from your CFO position? There's intrinsic risk with that type of background and speed to market. How do you assess that when you hear the next great thing walk in the door?
I used to always approach the business, the opportunity, through the lens of banking, private equity, tactically an Excel spreadsheet. I don't anymore. I now look at this much more, do you have the right product in the right market at the right time? Does that mean you've got something that differentiates you from the pack? In our case, it's speed. Do you have something where you're not going to have to create a market? A market exists, but you're going to do it a little differently. So it's much more for me at this point, who's doing something or who's bringing a company or a product to the fore that is a little bit of a better mousetrap. I can make anything work in an Excel spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. And it's going to look great, and it's going to go up and to the right.
For a lot of great ideas in theoretical land.
25% CAGRs, but at the end of the day, you're going, hey, is your product different? Are you seeing an influx of customers? Are you seeing kind of a gravity coming towards you as it relates to mind share, ordering behaviors, whatever the case may be? And so tying that back into VC, private equity, whatever the case may be, it's not dissimilar from kind of the best practices of investing. You go back to the 80s and you have a guy named Peter Lynch who would do research for public equities by sitting in the mall at Christmas. And he would go, I'm seeing a lot of Hanes bags, or I'm seeing a lot of Apple Store bags. Oh, I haven't seen any JCPenney bags today. That simple way to diligence a business worked out phenomenally for him. And I think it also informs kind of how we should, as investors, look at opportunities, right? Your eyes know more than your head's ever going to know.
Yeah.
Right? It's, wow, look at all those customers going there. They probably got something.
That's as grassroots as it gets from an equity analyst perspective.
Yeah, what can I say? I went to a state school.
There you go. So, all right, now we're in the finance, that equity investor or equity analyst kind of mindset. I want to pull on that P or iBank background. There's no telling how many P and iBank analysts are probably terribly envious of where you sit now as an alumni there, now an operator, and that where they would, I'm sure, aspire to be. When you think about the PE market, and you've dealt with a lot of sponsors, and there are a lot of discipline comes into picking the right sponsor because there's a lot of folks in that industry calling on good businesses. How do you assess? Everybody's got capital. How do you assess the right partner and the right value contribution for meeting your goals?
It's an interesting question because as soft as the answer is, it's not dissimilar from picking the right offshore partner in the case of offshoring. You got to assess your partners at a personal level. Do I have a partner within the fund? Do I have VPs, MDs within the fund who are going to be able to take bad news, because no business runs perfectly, or no business prints what the Excel spreadsheet says they're going to print. You're going to have ups and downs and tons of unexpecteds, and oh God, we didn't think about that, over a hold period. And so if you're thinking about hold periods from 3 to 5 to 7 to 9 to 10 years, you're going to have a lot of time with that counterparty. And so at that point in time, the partner selection of the VC or the PE is so much less, to your point, who's got capital. If you got a good business and you got good share and you're capturing customers, it goes back to right product in the right place in the right market at the right time, you're gonna have suitors. And so then it's all about, am I picking a partner that when the going gets tough, we're gonna get through it together? And I think that's where a lot of early stage first time entrepreneurs get a little bit sideways with their partner. They take the first money that comes along, or they take the first partner that comes to the dance.
Or the biggest number, not
the
thinking
biggest
structure.
number, the best brand, the largest fund. In a lot of cases, you can go a hell of a lot further with either a less well-known partner who's got just an incredible track record of standing by management teams through thick and thin, again, who are supportive and aligned to you as a management team, versus adversarial. You go back 15 years, I probably would have been a guy that always took the highest number when it came to bids. At this point, I'm going to do a lot more dinners and a lot less defending my model. The business will do what the business is going to do. And as you said, the capital is going to be there if you're doing things correctly. It really comes down to not dissimilar to what I said on picking an offshore partner. Who's got the right integrity? Who can you trust? Who do you know his values are going to align to you and your management's values? That's another thing, as I think back on my years as a analyst and an associate and early stages of my career. Mission, vision, value wasn't something I totally subscribed to. And when you get to the point of leading companies, it's the most important.
It matters.
It's all that matters.
I would agree. When you're young, it feels fluffy or hokey.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And then you get to a different state and you realize if you don't have it, you're nothing.
If you don't have it, if you can't articulate it, if it's not defined, if you don't...
Because when the wind changes, that's going to be what breaks first.
That's your compass. Can we tie what we're doing back to who are we, what are we, why do we do what we do? And if you can constantly tie back choices in product, choices in market, strategic decisions back to here's who we are and here's what matters, you're going to be okay.
It feels like I've witnessed a lot more deals where for those that rolled equity forward, the biggest number was the worst situation. And what it looked like on the back end of that. So as a cautionary tale. So if you're watching this and you're in the seat where you've got 3 to 5 sponsors that are assertive on you and it's time to do something, what are the things that they need to be? You mentioned their track record. Well, I don't want to ask that sponsor to refer me to somebody because that referral isn't going to mean a whole lot. How do they go about diligencing from that 3 to 5 to 1?
So
using your prioritization.
It's for better or worse, the idea of getting the reference sheet, you don't need to do it anymore, because the world we live in, it's gone from 6 degrees of separation to the entire globe's 1 degree of separation, thanks to LinkedIn, Google, and ChatGPT. So it's not going to take a lot for me to say, oh, here's 3 to 5 suitors, and I'm going to reach out to some of their former CEOs and presidents and CFOs and just kind of say, hey, look, here's where we are. Give me your idea. And as you and I know, there are so many personal connections in the healthcare space, particularly in Nashville, where you can get around and say, give me the nitty gritty over a Coors Light. And you're going to get to do the reverse diligence of capital partners that 20 years ago was unheard of. You just took the capital. Now you can be much more bi-directional in the relationship building, which is great. But at the end of the day, we are running growth companies. You need capital to grow. There's a pace of growth without capital, and there's a pace of growth with capital. And I think the vast majority of us will always prefer this. And so, kind of like I said with payers, capital providers are commercial enterprises. They have other stakeholders that they've got to service as it relates to returns and predictability of growth and successful exits. And so as we come to the table as operators and management teams with great operating assets, you cannot look at them as kind of the adversary, as who's going to get the better deal and how much capital can I get out of these guys. You got to understand they've got a mandate, you've got a mandate, you need their capital to kind of deliver on your growth plans. But then you've got to deliver on your growth plans because they've got somebody else on the other side that they're held responsible by. And so I think that's an evolution in the capital partner dynamics over the last 10, 20 years.
Staying on these sponsors, it feels like 2 years ago, the iBank, or maybe 3 or 4 now, time flies, SPAC was the thing the iBank was throwing out. That was their hot thing at the moment. Now it feels like continuation vehicles are the case, and more funds seem to have a carve out and new fundraise for continuation vehicles. Mm-hmm. Is that taking advantage? And obviously that was kind of a byproduct of a market adjustment with interest rates and whatnot. Do you see that as a positive? Do you see that as highlighting underperforming assets? Is it a chance to mature some of these assets? And I mean, what is your take on how we could view a continuation vehicle when a sponsor is advocating their fund?
You hit the one example where I do think there makes sense. Are we at an inflection point as a company where 2 to 4 to 5 more years allows a product to mature, a market to mature, something to realize? Then I kind of get it. Unfortunately, I think continuation vehicles are nothing more than taking a mark to market down. You're going, oh boy, I marked this up to 16x and I got nowhere to trade it. I held a dance, nobody showed up. Kick it in a continuation vehicle rather than trading it 10, 11, 12. And I of course know and appreciate why we do that. But what that really does is that's the financial impact. It's tough to be on a management team that gets put in a continuation vehicle because you're going, how am I going to pay for college now? How am I going to pay off that house now? I've been pulling this sled for 5 or 10 years for a liquidity event. And, the liquidity event for a management team is likely not tied to a mark, right? You could probably still transact in a lot of cases at 3, 4, or 5 turns less and probably still have a pretty good day as an operator. I'm pretty anti-continuation vehicles from the point of management. I think it's kind of kicking the can on a valuation reset. And at some point, the valuation reset is going to play out in the private markets. We cannot keep putting asset after asset after asset in continuation vehicle or holding assets rather than trading and resetting. And so that's my soapbox on that one.
And it highlights integration.
Yeah.
Did you do what you said you were going to do in what was a beautiful deck from an iBanker?
Exactly.
Where do you see, from what you've looked at as the private equity healthcare market shifting in the past few years, not just the interest rate, but the focuses, where do you see that going over the next decade? And would you rather be a buyer or a seller as an asset as that future matures?
I think as a healthcare investor, and I'm going to narrow this to our sector, I am very bullish on healthcare over the next 5 to 10 years. Insanely bullish on healthcare over the next 5 to 10 years.
French fries aren't getting illegal.
They're not getting illegal. The science is getting better. The speed at which results and the speed of healthcare are going to become table stakes. So it is a great time to be an operator and an entrepreneur in the American healthcare system. It's a great time to be an investor in the system. I think the challenge that the system will have, the capital markets have to work through right now is there are certain assets and portfolios that are probably overmarked. And so there needs to be a little bit of a reset of some sort in terms of expectations there. But that's a purely financial calculus. So when I think about as an operator, what gets me excited about healthcare, the financials will do what the financials will do. We've got so much opportunity around technological advancement, scientific advancement, that is going to make this an even more compelling place to deploy capital. That's all going to work great. And so that's what gets me excited.
So buyer or seller?
Buyer.
Buyer.
Buyer at the right value, of course.
Buyer at the right value, of course. I like it. All right. Well, I want to shift to something a little lighter, a little more personal. I appreciate everything we've touched on. Do a little bit better share who you are with the world.
Okay.
So a couple of fun questions about you. Favorite band of all time? This is very telling, Cary.
It's a great question.
You can say ABBA.
No, it's we're in Nashville. I got to give something country. Can I go with individual singer?
Anything, yeah. That's the kind of a I know what I'm talking about move.
Well, yeah, it's in Nashville. You can do one of two things. You can either play an instrument and carry a tune, or you're in healthcare.
Yeah.
And I can't carry a tune or play an instruments, but you're still in a city that can. I'm an old school country guy, so Garth's gonna always be high on my list. I like some folk and bluegrass as well. I hate to admit this. I've got 4 daughters under 5, so we do a lot of Taylor Swift too.
Okay. Nothing wrong with a little T-Swizzle.
I can do some T Swift in the car.
Okay. All right. Favorite song to sing of hers out loud?
Pray Archer.
All right. I don't know what that is, but I'll check it out later.
There we go.
All right. Favorite music venue? Could be national, but I definitely want to hear a Nashville one.
Station Inn by a mile.
We've heard that.
Yeah, nothing else. Station Inn in the Gulch is the OG Nashville setting, and it's one of the few places where I feel like the tourists haven't fully discovered it in the sense they have the Bluebird. I love the Station Inn.
Well, that's come up in conversations in the past, and I mentioned that I was concerned for many years there was going to be a sign on the door as that area of town exploded in every other way from high rises. Yeah. I gave the metaphor, it was like the movie Up, where the guy's little house continues to sit alone in a metropolis.
Well said. Well said.
So, all right.
That's what it feels like.
All right. I know you're an avid outdoorsman. You mentioned 4 daughters at this point under 5 years old.
Yeah.
God bless you. Where is one place that you have not been, hiked, climbed, visited, that you would like to?
Number 1 on my list right now is I want to go climb Mount Whitney. It's the highest mountain in the continental U.S. So I'm going to try and get that done this summer. And then I also want to go up and do the Whites in the Northeast.
Whites in the Northeast. All right. Whitney and Whites in the Northeast. And how many days do each of those take on a single trip?
Oh, you can probably do Whitney and as an overnight if you can get a permit. And then just depends on how many miles you want to do of the AT on the other.
All right. And you've hiked how much of the AT?
Not enough.
Not enough. All right.
Always a few more miles to go.
Okay. Out of left field here. What is one change you would make to any sports league to improve it?
Oh, easy. Whether it's baseball, football, golf, we've got to put more clocks in play or shorten the clocks. We're spending way too much time. There's no reason golf should take 4 hours. We've gotten baseball much closer to right now that we're down to like 2 hours and change for a game. But I think we got to put tight clocks on everything in between plays, pitches, shots, so that we can actually get to the end of the game without losing interest.
All right. Well said. Well, thank you so much. You're an exceptional asset to Nashville, and thank you for being on here and well thought of, and we appreciate your time.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Well, thank you.